here we go. We want to bring up, I'm not going to tell you what their roles are in the film or in the filmmaking, but this whole thing is the product of two twin brothers, Ari and Ethan Gold. Let's bring them up.
My dreams of being a ball player just came true. Thank you. We're the Brothers Gold. My name is Ethan Gold. This is the director, Ari Gold. Apparently there's a twin film that's hard to get into, but you are in a twin film with the real twins here. Thank you for being here for the early show. So this is, as you'll see, it's a very personal film. Ari's the director, I'll let him speak.
Oh. So we fight a lot, and he said, I think I should speak, so beforehand I was like, you know, you can go ahead and speak, maybe I'll just be quiet.
Tell a couple jokes.
Say what you want. Well, I want to thank Dennis Scott for setting us up. The matinee feeling, those who love cinema come to matinees even on beautiful days, and thank you all so much for being here. As Ethan said, this is a very personal film, an experiment in cinema that we hope moves you in all the ways that a movie can, and thank you for supporting independent cinema and to this festival for bringing films that otherwise you might not see into your eyeballs.
So I think we're going to be doing the
Q&A afterwards.
Oh yeah, we're doing the Q&A after, so we won't say that much. We'll leave you. Get out of the way. But we will be back afterwards to answer any and all of your questions as truthfully as we know how.
Once again, guys, Brothers Gold. I didn't see a single person leave when those credits started, so I guess you guys got this. Thank you for sticking around. Let's start at as much of the beginning as we can. I mean, I feel like there's a few beginnings here, but...
Well, a sperm went into an egg and split, and then got confused and turned into two people.
Well, that's an interesting thing because I feel like there's two different versions of the twin story. And either it's that the twins are complete opposites of each other, or that they're so similar that they're, bonded psychically, or so. I feel like you're more in that category, but how did you want to sort of differentiate this story of twin brothers that maybe we haven't seen before from like a Lindsay Lohan movie or something?
I feel there's a contrast between us that is very true and was played up in the film. I was saying to somebody, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I said to Francis Coppola, we just met for the first time a few weeks ago, and I was saying we were fighting, and he said, you don't seem to be fighting, but our version of fighting is, I guess, a little more, psychological. There were no long...
It's a little bit of an Oasis moment.
There were no montages with people getting killed, but that was just sort of an amazing thing that he came on board, which I guess you saw his name at the beginning of the film. That just happened a month ago. So we just met him for the first time 2 weeks ago. But anyway, to me, we are a contrast, but it's,
It was also important to us that, because as you mentioned, twins appear in a lot of stories, and the Lindsay Lohan-ification or the Dead Ringers-ification of twinness, and
we're looking forward to
twinless, and twinless will provide another much more true to life perspective on the complexity of twin relationships. Twins are brothers, or if they're male. Twins, even if they're sisters, twins are brothers, but born at the same time. But when you're identical twins, there's the additional factor of how the world perceives you. And if you're a twin, you grow up. If you're an identical twin, specifically, you grow up in a world where you know you're a person, you know you're a full person, the same as anyone, as singletons out there. But the world doesn't see you that way. And the development of the human personality is entirely built on how you perceive yourself and then how you are reflected back in the world. Every child psychologist knows this. Twins are not seen as individuals by the world. So the fight to define yourself is central to twinness. And so doing a story that's based on the codependence that anyone can relate to, the need to separate that anyone can relate to in certain ways, but that's very heightened with twins, seemed to me to be a fruitful subject because I hadn't seen anyone do it in a way that resembled real life ever.
You talked about Coppola before. I mean, you said he just came on board officially recently, but his DNA is in this movie. He has this line.
He is the godfather.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so he, well, okay. We shot in his neighborhood, right? He wrote a book called Live Cinema about this idea of a future where people could make movies in the streets, and in his case, he wanted to shoot multicam, and he did little pieces of One from the Heart that way, but he always wanted to do live cinema with, like a sports director saying, camera 12, and so this live cinema with a single camera is kind of emerging of his idea, and then, some other films that have done that. But he was really there in the air the whole time, and then I ended up mixing or doing sound design for over a year in the basement of the Zoetrope building because one of the producers on it, this hippie producer, was like, "Oh, do you want to work at the Zoetrope building? I know a guy who mixes down there in the basement," and ended up being a great artist named Jim McKee, and we worked intensely for a year on the sound, passing a picture of Francis every time I went down past the kitchen of Cafe Zoetrope. I'm like, someday I'm going to meet this man. But it didn't happen until right before our premiere.
5 hours before our premiere.
So yeah, actually, the word came back that he wasn't interested. And then 4 hours later, he sent an email, not to us, so it was translated to us through channels because we didn't have his contact, but that he reluctantly put on the movie and then was really moved by it and decided and changed his mind. So that was really an incredible moment for us.
Amazing, yeah. You mentioned sound before, and as much as I'm always curious about anyone who attempts like a single take film and just how you work that out geographically, I was watching this movie going, how did they get the sound? You're getting dialogue, you have to capture music, it's way more difficult.
There was a lot of prep.
Post-production.
a lot of prep in terms of sculpting Ethan's music, both the songs and the score, to flow with the story. And then, everyone had lav mics, radio mics, and then there was a huge amount of cleanup. That's why I said I spent a year. And I took my shoes, I had my iPhone in my shirt, and I walked on my hands through North Beach doing sound effects of shoes on the ground to get the right. I was so every sound in there was representing my psychosis.
Let's talk about the music. I can imagine that you, as a musician, you have a bevy of songs at your disposal that you have already written before this. How much of what we hear in here is your classics, and how many were written for the film?
It's about half and half. The idea that Ari had the idea of shooting this, I was living in Berlin, and we were from that to shooting in a matter of weeks. So in order to, I actually had a bunch of new songs that I wrote for the film that I thought would work really well thematically. I didn't feel confident that I could perform them live in time to do this, so I used songs that I knew I could do. And then there were a couple, the key song in the film was written for the film. I was like, okay, let me get that one down. and that's the one that the end credits where people were, there was noise in the theater, but that end credit song, which we play a few other times, I'm attempting to teach him the song in the film. So that was, and a few other things. So it was a mixture, which we had to just for time. If I'd had a year of prep, I probably would have, because I have hundreds of things that nobody's ever heard, but as I talk about, it's a true thing that a lot of songwriters and artists,
There was a true story aspect.
painters, like we all have our work that isn't.
But that was
Later,
it was great for me
later.
to, knowing all of his released music as well as his unreleased music, we were able to have intelligent conversations about which songs would work in the scene. So, one of the key moments for me is when he plays a song called The Fog Man in the bar. I'm in the process of losing Louise to Brian, and he's having a little bit of a meltdown, and he plays this very intense song that then in post-production, he took his live piano rendition and then added instruments, and it allows a film that is, live and live music and honest live music, but then score comes in and brings a kind of internal monologue magic to different scenes. And so there are, I think, 4 or 5 scenes where we used the foundation of what was recorded live, and then he brought it into another universe through orchestration that works with the live music.
I want to talk about your dad. Obviously, this film is a huge, it's dedicated to him, I guess, at the end. But it's also just, he's a third lead in this movie, even though he's barely in the film, because when he's not there, you're talking about him and where
Structurally, he's the shark in the water. I mean, I was thinking very much like, okay, when does the fin come up, or when do the yellow buckets come up?
That's in the film.
And then
We
you
have no idea what's going to happen when we finally get to his house. But he did. I think it's sort of indicated at the end with the title cards that he did pass away.
He died. He would slap you.
Die.
He has a poem. We have a poetry book called Father versus Sons, with the same pun spelling of verses. And he has a poem called Not Passing Away. And he writes very specifically about hating the term passing away. So it's not your fault at all. But in honor of my dad, I have to say that he would appreciate us just saying that he died.
But how soon after you did this did he die?
8 weeks.
8 weeks. So that's 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's amazing. It's incredible. But it must mean so much if you got this done.
I mean, it's a little bit like Harrison Ford grabbing his hat as the door is closed, and to some degree, we almost had our arms taken off by the metaphorical wall coming down. Yeah, I mean, it's strange to walk into his apartment with the movie, and of course I know the movie by heart, but sometimes I'll see it fresh, his personality and his liveness.
He gives, by the way, in case there's any lack of clarity, the movie's with the structure improvised, including our 99-year-old father gave a great performance as an actor. It was just amazing that because he was aware, some people have asked us, was he aware that this was happening, or that it's like, he was absolutely aware. It was a film crew, it was a very tiny film crew, but it was a film crew in his apartment, it was all planned out. It was what he was going to do in the scene, kind of where the scene was supposed to be guided emotionally and also physically, kind of making our way through the apartment. So I just
those 2 moments where he looks at the camera, he said, did he not know that he was, and I don't know exactly what he was thinking when he looks at the camera, but those are some of my favorite moments in the movie, because there's this thing that we're doing through the movie where as it moves towards the end, you start to realize more and more how real it is. And so those undirected, beautiful miracle accident moments of him glancing at the camera, to me, are exactly what we need at that moment. It's not written into the script. Look at the camera here, Dad. He just did that, and And at first I thought it was oh fuck, what am I going to do? Should I digitally move his eyeballs? You know, but then I was like, no, this is beautiful.
We have to wrap things up, but these guys are actually going to hang out in the lounge for a little bit if you guys want to ask questions and talk to them. This film does not have a distributor?
Yes, I will say
What
that.
can these people do?
Okay, so this is a labor of love, an independent film. You're all supporters of independent films because you're here. Certainly, if you can get out your phones and go to Brother Versus and join our mailing list, that would be super helpful. If you know reviewers or people in the business that you want to tell that if you love the movie and you vote for the movie, and there's an audience thing.
Audience award, please vote.
If you want to vote and you vote,
Maybe half these people are film critics.
some of them are. We know the name of the
You
festival.
can still vote. No one knows.
So yeah, it's this is a tiny movie that I think has potential to affect a lot of people, but only if they have heard about it. And so I do ask you, kind of pleading that if you could spread the word, join our mailing list, because otherwise you may never hear about us again. And that's just the reality. There's a lot of beautiful films that people don't see, and so. But we do think that there's an audience for this, that we think we can take it on the road and play music. And I had my ukulele, but then we just somehow didn't play. But we could turn it into a thing, and we think there's a possibility that there are movies back in the old days, movies like Once about unknown musicians could distribute, could have
Also,
courage.
anybody, I don't know, the sort of aging parent thing I've noticed in the screenings we've gone to, there are a lot of people who have been like, oh my God, which isn't something that you see that often either, the cleaning up of the hoarding of the food, and this is something that maybe some of you know about, but it's a fairly common experience that I feel kind of glad that almost by accident telling our story that became something that's on the screen for people to connect with.
Guys, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Let's let them get out. Let them get out.
And we'll come back